So, hey guys, welcome back to another of Enigma's live streams, uh, the Computer Science Club of Mahindra University. I'm Shrikar, the Vice President for the current academic year, and today with me I have Ravi, Dhatri, and another Shrikar from the all from the 2020 batch, here to give you a tiny introduction to how WhatsApp works. And we made sure that it's as beginner friendly as possible. So let's get started.
Hey guys, I'm Shrika from the 2020 batch. So let's go back in time for a second. So back in the day, smoke signals were the earliest forms of communication. And then everyone started writing and letters into existence. Humanity started writing letters, and then everyone sent them to each other by making people carry these messages on horse. But we humans got lazy and made pigeons do the job for us. And then technology and science gave us telegrams to communicate, and then we moved on to telephones and cell phones. And yeah, I forgot to primitive ways to send messages, and those are pagers and fax machines. Who cares about them? Anyways. So initially, people used to call each other to, and then we moved to short message service, aka SMS. This was done on a brick phone when people had to press 3 or 4 times on a number to get a letter. A hit of nostalgia, indeed. And then we moved on to phones that had a physical keyboard. Later, we just had a realization to use our fingers to type on the screen. Now, calling someone at times is inconvenient when compared to messaging, as when you're messaging someone, you can do it irrespective of the time and it won't be as much of an interaction when you're calling someone. Also, in some way, we can say it's more productive as it consumes much less time and effort to text someone when compared to calling them. Another point in favor of messaging is that when you message someone, you give them time to think and reply, unlike on a call where they respond on the spot. And now I hand it down to Ravi to talk about servers.
Hello, Ravi from the 2020 batch. Hi. So, what are servers? What is system? So, if you think about it, a server is quite analogous to a post office, if you remember an actual post office. So, imagine you're in the 1900s and how will you talk to someone apart from calling them out loud? Well, you would have to write a physical letter with your address and your friend's address on it, right? And then a postman or postwoman would deliver it to your friend. And yeah, that's pretty slow to explain too. And even for us to get the reply back, the person on the other side had to send it back to the post office, and the postman had to get it back to the place. So we can take a similar analogy in the text messaging context. The postman is replaced where the postman is replaced by the internet basically, and a server is literally another extra computer that is placed somewhere else only to act as a post office to and help deliver the messages. So yeah, it's actually just another computer that is placed somewhere else to help deliver messages. On a side note, the devices that people use to send messages are called clients. So that's a term. So why are servers necessary? So if we take a client, for example, let's take Joe here, the beard guy with the fancy hairstyle. So it is going to get blatantly difficult to establish connections from Joe's mobile to the devices of every friend of his. Like imagine connecting wires from one client to each and every client and doing the same thing with every client. Oh my god, it sounds so complex. And actually, you know what? You don't have to imagine all of this. Thanks to the existence of servers, things get easy. As a client to server to client system is established, as you can see on the slide here, from Joe to So how do the users of WhatsApp communicate with each other? Remember the post office reference we took a minute ago? Like people had to write down the address to send the mail. Yeah, so the IP address is literally the same thing, an address, but the only difference here is that it's virtual. And that's how the server differentiates between clients and sends messages to the right people. Yeah, that's literally it. An IP address is an address that is virtual. As you can see, the girl on this slide has a different IP address from that of Joe here, so it is unique. Now I'm gonna hand it over to Datri. She's gonna explain about XMPP stuff.
Hey, I'm Dhatri from the 2020 batch too. So before we go ahead to understand XMPP, we should know what a protocol is. So for that, let me take you back in time, not so back, but before COVID, when handshakes were used in many social and formal gatherings. So when a person extended their hand, it was understandable that the other had to put their hand forward to conclude the greeting. So, this is a human protocol. Similarly, WhatsApp and other instant messaging applications use what is known as XMPP. Understand that it's not as intimidating as it sounds. The X stands for extensible, which means it can be changed or extended according to the need. M stands for messaging, which means sending and receiving text in real time. P stands for presence. It denotes the real time data exchange, like the status of the user, whether they're online or offline. And the other P stands for protocol. To give you a definition in proper terms, it's like a set of rules which is used by machines to communicate with each other. Now we can see the port scan of the WhatsApp server. A port is like a channel where a particular stream of information belonging to one protocol goes through. Just as we post our letters in a particular language because it is comprehensible to the person who receives it, we use XML, which is used to transfer data between the client and the server, as it is easy to use in that format. So now I'm going to hand it over to Siddharth, who will explain about encryption and privacy.
Not this envelope contains my whereabouts. Do not open it unless you absolutely have to.
That it?
Yes.
Okay, bye. I knew you were going to open this the moment I left. To slow you down, I've shrouded my destination in code. What a
Yeah, hello, I'm Siddharth. So, as Datri explained, now we know how XMPP works and how the messaging works and how messages are sent and received. Then, how do you make sure that the messages you send are safe and secure and no third person gets in and reads your message? How do you make sure that? This is where encryption comes in. Let me explain you what encryption is with an example. Just consider a locker where you keep some valuable things. It's always locked, right? And only when you need it, you open it. Similar is encryption. Uh, but WhatsApp uses something called end-to-end encryption. What is end-to-end encryption? So end-to-end encryption is something like both of the users have a public key and a private key. So when Alice wants to send a message to Bob, like it's Barbie, it's encrypted with Bob's public key and it turns to some gibberish like LH underscore F and something which is not human readable. So the main question is how will Bob understand what Alice wanted to say? It's some gibberish, right? Here is where decryption comes in. The message which got encrypted with Bob's public key is decrypted by Bob's private key. And the gibberish turns back to the text, it's Barbie. Sounds confusing, right? But it's not that confusing. Consider encryption algorithm as a locker, which can only be locked by a single key and unlocked by a different key, which is the private key over here. Then how do you make sure that the message you send is safe and the encryption algorithm that they used is secure? Here is where open source software like Signals come in. Signal have their source code open, so you can actually go and verify that they are actually using some secure encryption type and not some malicious stuff. Okay, let's move to privacy. How do you So privacy is being an important thing these days, right? Because you send a message to someone and some person reads it. It's so cringe, right? Yeah, it is. Um, so then how do you make sure that no one actually reads it? There are two ways. Use open source softwares like Signal, which actually have their source code open, so you can trust them by actually checking the code if you want to, or you can go full on nerd by making your own XMPP server. Yeah, cool, right? Yeah, I'll hand it over to Srikar right now. Srikar, are you there?
Thank you, Siddharth. That was pretty insightful on open source.
You're muted.
So now, before we conclude, I would like to reiterate that this was a tiny introduction to how WhatsApp worked. So let's just recap what we did in this session. We talked about a brief history of evolution of messaging from smoke signals to instant messaging. We talked about the importance of servers in instant messaging, how they direct the data flow and help us receive our messages and send our messages. We also discussed what protocols are and how XMPP is crucial, and that's the main protocol behind instant messaging. And lastly, we also talked about encryption and securing the message, and also the privacy part of it, because online privacy is pretty important, and I guess awareness should be increased about it. So yeah, that is it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. Uh, in case you wish to dig deeper, we have our resources linked in the slides and down in the description. Uh, Feel free to join our Discord server for further discussions. Until then, see you next time.